Hello and welcome to another episode of the Family Table. And today we will be making Salara, also known as Rust. Well, that's what we call it in Montserrat. Some places might call it red bread. It's very similar to coconut turnovers, and it just depends on where you're from, but we call them Salara in Guyana. So it is a sweetened coconut mix that's in a bread like dough mixture, and it's baked, and it's super awesome and super amazing and extremely popular. So if you love coconut, you will love this. So just before I start with the recipe, I need you guys to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and also make sure you hit the thumbs up button on this video, and make sure you share, and at the end make sure you comment. Let me know what you think of the recipe, and let's get into it. So for our Salara dough, you're going to need 4 cups of plain flour or all-purpose flour depending on where you live. And to this we are going to add a quart of a teaspoon of salt. And then I am adding 1.5 tablespoon of white granulated sugar. You don't want to add too much sugar to the dough because obviously the filling is going to be super sweet. But obviously we are going to use this to help the yeast, which I am adding to the recipe to activate. So I am using 7 grams of easy bake yeast. So which is 1 packet, 1 yeast packet, or a tablespoon, or you can use about a tablespoon. So I just like to pour it over the sugar, and I like to use the easy one because it's less work. I don't have to go through the process of all that extra activating. And then I am adding 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So just gonna get all of that in and just mix everything together well. So you can get a spoon. I normally just like to mix all the dry ingredients together. And also, just an update, I will have all of the measurements and ingredients in the description box, so no need to worry. Now, to this I will be adding butter, but you can also use margarine. So I am using about 100 grams of butter, which I've weighed. I'm just going to add that to the flour. And you guys know how I get down. I'm just going to get my hands into this. And you just want to rub that butter into the flour. Okay, so now I've rubbed the butter into the flour, and now we are going to add the liquid. I will be mixing mine with milk and water. So I have a mixture of whole milk, and I've just added a bit of warm water to it. I prefer when you mix it with milk, the dough is very light and soft. And one thing, you don't want to overwork the dough, so we're going to be adding the milk to this until everything comes fine. I probably won't give you an exact amount for the liquids to add because it always depends on where you live, the climate, and the brand of flour. So if you find that you've added way too much, you can always add a bit more flour, or you just want to add a little by little because obviously it depends on the brand. So we're just going to make a bit of a well, and we're just going to add a bit of our milk, and we're just going to mix this in slowly until it's all combined and it forms a ball. So I'm just going to mix and add water as I go along, and you just want to scrape the sides of the bowl and just make sure you get everything until it forms into nice soft dough balls. So now you can see it's all coming together. Just want to knead it a bit. I'm not going to need it too much, so I'm just going to use that. Scrape sides of the bowl. I'm just working it. You just want to make sure all of it's together. Get a nice soft dough ball. I'm just going to form this out. Just rest it in a bowl and just cover it and let this sit and rise. So you probably leave this for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half. Just depends on the temperature of where you are. It's super cold right now in the UK. I don't know why still, because it needs to get warmer like fast. So we're just gonna let this sit. So for the filling, you're going to need freshly grated coconut. What you're also going to need is some food coloring or food dye, because we're going to dye this, because traditionally Salara is red. You can use other colors of food coloring into this to dye it. It is your choice. So what you'll need if you're using the liquid one, the liquid dye, you'll also need a pinch of salt for the recipe, so help bring out the flavor in the coconut. But I do not normally use the liquid ones anymore. I use the powdered food coloring. In the powdered food coloring, if you watch the ingredients, majority of them having salt. So if it has in salt, I would not add any more salt into this, because we do not want it to be overly salted. So, and then you do adjust. I'm not really going to give you a measurement for how much food coloring to add. It'll just depends on how much you like, because some people might want this really dark, very deep red. Some might want it very light and pale. It's just personal preference, because not a lot of people like to dye their foods or use food coloring. Just find yourself a good brand and something that suits your taste. So to our coconut, we're basically going to add some spices. So we're going to add some ground cinnamon, some ground mixed spice, and just a bit of freshly grated nutmeg I'm adding to this. That is optional, but I just do like the flavor in which all three of them gives to this. And now we just mix them in. Now we are going to add the sugar. So I am using 1.5 cup of sugar. You might want to use 2. I have all the measurements, but it just depends on personal taste if you want this super sweet or not. At this point, some people might want to cook the coconut. I do not. I prefer to let mine sit, because I'm going to add some vanilla to this, a liquid component, and then to continue mix this in, and then you'll see how it becomes. Okay, so now to this, now that I've mixed in all the sugar, I'm adding a tablespoon of vanilla. So it's vanilla essence I am using. Depends on where you're from. Some it'll be named as essence or extract, and we just mix this in. And when the vanilla is added and you let this sit, it will start to produce a lot more moisture. So when it's time to be added to the dough, it'll be really good, but it won't be too runny. Like if you were to add this to a pan and cook it, it will produce a lot of moisture. Sometimes it is just a bit too much moisture for me, for my personal liking, to add to the bread, or add to the dough, I should say. So now at this point, now that I've mixed all of that in, we are going to add the food coloring. So you want to start just a little bit at a time, just so you can see how red or how dark you want it. So as you can see, we've just added a little tip, and it's already starting to change color. But I can tell I'll need a bit more, because it's not red enough for how we want it. So you can see it's already starting to change color. It's almost looking a bit pinkish in color. So we're just gonna keep adding more food color. Okay, so switch to small spoon. So we're just gonna keep adding. Okay, so I've added way more. I'm just gonna mix this. And I do try to keep these colorings in a few different colors. So for a moment I was like making sure I didn't accidentally pour like the orange. But that would have been fine still. Would have mixed it, and as you can see it's getting, the color is changing but not quite where we want it to be. Some brands are stronger. This is a new brand I'm testing out. So but and the salt that is in the powdered food coloring, it will bring out more of the flavor in the coconut. So that's why we just add a bit of salt. But if you're someone who's not allowed to have a lot of salt, what you need to do, you can probably use the liquid food coloring instead. You can use a pinch or you can omit the salt. So it will fit your dietary needs. So now if we look at this, you can see it is a nice red. But I think I want to go a bit darker. So I just might add a little tip more. And just work that in. And then, like I said, you add to how red of a color you like. Some people like it super, super dark red. Some people like it not so dark, very light palish color. In Guyana, we're used to it being very red. It's very similar to this is very similar to like the coconut turnovers which you might get in Barbados and a few other islands, but this is the way we do it in Guyana. But yes, so this is good for me. So what I'm gonna do now is just cover this, allow it to sit, and then just put a bit of cling film and allow it to sit while the dough continues to proof and be ready. Now look at that. Super red, perfect consistency. So the dough has had time to rest and it has raised. So just remove this. So now I'm just gonna punch the air down, kind of like we're making bread. Just give this one good mix. And now I'm just gonna divide this in half. I'm just gonna eyeball it. So this will get me to Salara. And what you're gonna need now is a bit of extra flour for dusting, a bit of butter to put on the dough, so when we're layering it with the coconut filling. But now all we're just gonna do is roll out the dough. Okay, so I've lightly dusted my rolling pin. I've placed a bit of flour on my work surface just to keep the dough from sticking, and we're just gonna roll this out. And you're gonna roll this out very thin, to about 1 centimeter. You want it thin but not too thin that it will bore while it's baking. But you do not want it too thick, because it's not bread. Well, it is a type of bread, but you don't want to feel like you're just eating bread. It's just dough. So you just want to evenly roll this out. So now that it has completely been rolled out, I like to just add a bit of butter. I get a pastry brush and I just spread the butter. You can actually melt the butter, but I don't know, for some reason I just prefer to do it like this when the butter is at room temperature, and I just lightly brush it instead of using the melted butter. So now that we finish adding the butter, we are going to add the coconut. I have a mini spatula for spreading, so I'm going to add about half of the coconut mix to this. So I'm not going to worry at this moment in time about placement, so I just normally put it all in the center. And then I'll take my spatula and spread it out evenly. So you just want to evenly distribute the coconut all over the dough. Okay, so now I spread out the coconut mix filling very evenly. So now what we want to do is to roll this up together like a log, or kind of like when you're making cinnamon rolls. Some people, they'll just fold thing, but I like to do them really tight because I like to see the layers. Just gonna fold the edges down a bit. And I will say, sometimes you do have a bit of leaking, especially when you have lots of dough, but that is fine. It's all about the taste. So that is my first one done. So okay, so I've finished rolling both out. What I'm gonna do is let it rest again for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and then I'm gonna place them into the oven to bake them at 180 degrees. I have an electric fan oven, so depending on your oven, obviously some oven temperatures are a bit different, so you don't want them up too high, but you don't want it too low. So I'll bake them for about half an hour until they're completely cooked. Okay, so just before I put in the oven, I have an egg wash that I'm just gonna brush on this. And like I said before, you can use sugar, water, a bit of sugar and some water, and just glaze the entire thing. So now that I've done that, I'm basically gonna put them in the oven to bake. So these bad boys literally just came out the oven. A beautiful color. One of them had a bit of leakage, but to be honest, I thought it would have happened because it was the second one, and I kind of had a lot of stuff in that one. But look at that beautiful golden brown color. It's not too dark, not too light. So what we're gonna do now is just allow them to cool before we even take a slice into them, and then I'll show you guys. So now the Salara is completely cooled. We are just gonna slice it. And by the looks of it, you can already see that swirl. So and you can cut them how thick or how thin you would like them to be. I don't want these too thick. It's all about portion control. Now that I've cut these, now let's have a look. And you can see that spiral. So that's why I said we wrap them very tightly and give them enough time to bake. It's not too soggy, so the dough is not wet and soggy, because we didn't cook that coconut, but it still gets cooked in the bacon and it's still perfect for eating. And trust me, it is amazing. You can see all that beautiful layers right through. Now look at that. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. So, and I do hope everyone makes it. Trust me, it's amazing. So I want to thank you guys for watching. So please make sure you subscribe to this channel and make sure you thumbs up this video and also share it with everyone you know on all your social media. And also don't forget to get down in the comment section when you've tried a recipe. Let me know what you think, what else would you like to see me make, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.